And we're back with another episode of Inside Sports Fantasy Football. It's Gerald Glassford coming back at you here from Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Also, as well, the Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, where we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture. Twice a week, wherever you get your podcasts. We're on all those great channels. Plus, for a special time, we're going to be gone right now for Lakers Corner and Clutch Talk, those sports-related channels. Want to say a big hello right there for you. Inside Sports Fantasy Football. We're also going to be on, I guess for the season, we're going to be on Lakers Fast Break going forward on ISFF. Thought I'd go ahead and sneak that in there. But a great show is lined up for you today. This week, the NFL season returns to us. Football fans rejoice because it is the NFL season starting this week, but there are just a few days left as of this recording to go ahead and sneak in one final draft. We had our draft last week as far as Yahoo. No, Joe Soro himself has had his draft as well. So I'll talk to the dark.
Did you just call me a hoe?
No, I didn't. I meant Joe Soro.
Oh,
I guess Joe Soro had his draft. No, I wouldn't call you a hoe. So there you go. Chris and Dom Lardieri will talk about what happened with their drafts and Joe as well. Give some final tips. Plus, we're going to go ahead and talk about week one. And of course, the return of the Doghouse. We'll talk about our picks for the underdogs in week one of the NFL as well. Or if anything else stands out for week one in the NFL as well. So great to have you here. Hopefully you've done well in your drafts. But if you have a draft that's pending, Joe, I will start with you first. Your draft, how did it go? And any last second or last minute advice to people out there choosing their draft here in the next couple days before the season starts.
Well, I found it comical that I think I was last in grades for my draft. The lineups, I was fortunate enough to have the second pick in each of the two leagues I'm playing in. So with those picks, I ended up picking, one was McCaffrey, the other was Bijan Robinson. And I'm hoping I don't regret the McCaffrey pick. There is word out of San Francisco that his workload's going to be lessened, but I have a feeling that he's at least going to get the close to the goal line carries no matter what. Mm-hmm. We're gonna find out if the running back that's been playing for a while is going to finally hit the wall. Running backs tend to hit the wall rather quickly, and I'm hoping that McCaffrey can win me another one, because the last time I had McCaffrey, I ended up going 14-1 in my NFL.com league. And the only reason why I lost that one game was Mahomes' throw to Kelsey in the end zone, because I had Mahomes and Kelsey that year as well. That was the year Mahomes started his first season. The ball was thrown in the end zone perfectly to Kelsey, but the free safety, whom I can't remember who it was, hit Kelsey at the perfect spot, and it ended up being an incomplete pass. Had Kelsey made that catch, I would have gone 15-0 that year.
Fair enough. Absolutely. So with that, your last second advice, though. I mean, there are still people who have yet to.
This wasn't a hand league. This is a 12-man league.
Yeah.
People cared. People are good, and it was rather very interesting. It was the best year I ever had, obviously, and I was in the championship game in my other league. And usually I do pretty well when I have the MVP of the league playing quarterback. I seem to win. I seem to win when I have the MVP at quarterback, which some have said that Jordan Love might be a candidate for that, and I have drafted Jordan Love in one of my leagues as well.
Very smart, as have I. Very sound advice right there for you. Once again, it is Inside Sports Fantasy Football. I'm not just talking to three black boxes. They are Joe Soro from Simblades, SimbladesWithY.com, and also LakersBall.com. Also, as well, is the tag team Lardieri, better known as the guys behind Domination Sports Nation. I will go with the younger audience member first, as far as that, the younger panelist first. It is, of course, Dominic Lardieri. And Dom, I'm going to supersede you over Dad first because it's been a while since you've been on. Hopefully, you've had a good and productive summer, my friend. I know that you're back in school, and I appreciate you joining us here today. So I ask you, my friend, your final thoughts on what may be a very, very interesting draft for those in the final days, really outside of JJ McCarthy and a couple other injuries. There's really not too much worry on the injury front, but you see people going all over the place on who should be at the top of everyone's draft for those that are drafting here in the next couple days.
Yeah, obviously Christian McCaffrey is the slated number one, but a lot of people are starting to go Brees Hall, and then obviously CeeDee Lamb just recently got paid as well, and that also changed a lot as well with the CeeDee Lamb contract. You see Jamar Chase holding out now as well, and so a lot of people are starting to pass up on Jamar Chase. So a lot definitely changing for that first round landscape. But you go to the second round, there's obviously some great running backs there. You got Isaiah Pacheco, Kyron Williams, and Jahmyr Gibbs. I like any of those guys except for the fact that Sean McVay announced last week that Kyron Williams going to be returning punts, which, normally I would be, hey, go all for it. He's your playmaker, but Kyron Williams has a deep-rooted injury history, and McVay loves to work his running back, so it could be potential here that he gets slated to be injured and get worked into the ground with the McVay workhorse that we've seen. But I don't know. I also like Blake Corum a lot as well. The Rams drafted him in this past draft, so maybe I'm being a little biased because I want to see him have a good rookie year.
I am very nervous, Dom, right now about Jamar Chase because I have him in our Yahoo League, and I am very nervous. He might just be taking a couple days off. Yeah, I know, but you and I know what it's all about. It's all about money. It's all about repositioning himself at the top of the wide receiver list. Brandon Ayuk also got a contract extension. He finally moaned and groaned his way to a $120 million extension. So before I hit it over to your father, what are your thoughts about that? Because I was able to pick him up in one of my leagues as well, because in fact, the Yahoo League, actually both of my leagues, I'm sorry, because of the fact that people were kind of underestimating because he was holding out.
Yeah, his ADP definitely is going to fly up now with that, but also Deebo Samuel is definitely going to fall back as well because a lot of people thought that Ayuk would try and hold out beginning of the season and Deebo would be the slated number one for him, but I still would take Ayuk over Deebo. I think that's a safer option. And also look at the Bengals with Chase holding out right now. You can see that same thing's happening there where T. Higgins right now is the supposed wide receiver one for now against New England on Sunday if Chase decides not to play.
Also here today, good man indeed. He is the other half of the Domination Sports Nation tag team. It is Chris Lardieri. Chris, great to have you here, my friend. Asking you real quick on your thoughts. Again, the final days for the draft. We always cover it each and every year, how to prepare for your draft. I know that there's people, whether it's you're in your fourth or fifth league already and you're about want to just do one more to get your fantasy football fix in because you're an addict. Or if you're a casual player, just saying, you know what, think I'm ready to go ahead and take the plunge and see if I can go ahead in for my first time, or just going to go ahead and do it this year. Your thoughts as we head into the final days of summer before the NFL season begins.
It's great to be back, Gerald. Thank you. We actually have our large money league draft tomorrow night, Dom and I. I'm looking forward to it. Not only did we do our Yahoo one last Thursday, but I got to play a chaperone of sorts for Dom's league with his friends at a local restaurant. So to just sit there and look at them all on their phones and stressing out and talking smack back and forth, it was nice to be on the outside looking in. So I will say, when you're not in the heat of it, it's enjoyable to watch a bunch of 16 and 17-year-olds do their fantasy draft. My last minute advice is, like you said, there aren't a lot of injuries. Could the Chase and Ayuk thing kind of cloud the wide receiver landscape? Maybe. I think what we found in the drafts we've done is guys will fall to you. So when you see, say in the first round, 3 running backs come off the board and someone may go reach for a fourth, sit back, relax, enjoy a good wide receiver just fell to you. And then 2, if you're at the back end of the draft, always look to see what the guy behind you, whether it's 1 or 2 spots, what they do on the turn. because if they start reaching and taking a wide receiver, don't you panic. They're, like Dom said, there's quality talent in the second round at running back. I think in our drafts, we didn't see a quarterback. Did we even see one, Dom, go in the second round? I think the third was the earliest. I would implore everyone to wait on that unless you really have a strong feeling like on Josh Allen, as Gerald does in our league and Dom does in another. But what we found is the quarterback talent even slid a little further than expected. And you could get someone like a Lamar Jackson or an Anthony Richardson later than you might think. So, as they say, let the board come to you. You're going to see people overreact and panic regardless of what type of league you're in.
I finished first and second the past 2 years in Yahoo, Chris, with Josh Allen. And you know me, I always go for quarterbacks high. I always pack my quarterbacks within the first 6 rounds, both my quarterbacks, so they're usually highly ranked just as a safety measure. And Josh Allen, he's won me leagues, my friend. That's all I'll say.
I don't begrudge you for that. But what I think is interesting is you look at some of these draft boards and mocks, and people are. I agree, Allen's probably the number one quarterback heading into this season, fantasy wise. But you're seeing people taking him if it's a really big league, sometimes late in the first into the second
no,
round.
not that high.
I'm
a third round quarterback.
Yeah,
Third,
I would
fourth
not
round
advocate that. And then Gerald, we took a page from your book. We were sitting there, and guy we like, rookie Jaden Daniels, was still out there in the 11th round, and we grabbed him because Richardson's got a lot of upside, but he was hurt. He's been hurt, and you always need a quality backup quarterback, and we don't want to be out there fishing through the waiver wire looking at the Daniel Jones and Sam Darnolds of the world 4 weeks in.
I will say this, though, carrying 3 quarterbacks, I don't have a problem with it. I've done that in the past. I didn't do it yet because I did, like we talked about before we went on air, the last 4 picks, I wasn't there for our draft, and it auto drafted me. I don't know how it gave me an A- with that's the case, Chris, and I got 2 defenses. I don't know how that happens, but okay. Like you said, it must be because Yahoo likes itself and likes its own picks, but be that as it may, Joe, I want to bring it back to you again. Lining you up for success in your first couple weeks, I think is crucial because everybody's going to try to go ahead and get off to a good start. I think getting off to a good start is really beneficial for you, Joe, because it's just so hard when you've had, and I've had to do this, where you go out 0-3, 1-4, you start off the season struggling, and it's just so hard to make the maneuvers to get you back over the hump.
This is the season of the next phase of stars. Most of the guys that I picked showed promise last year. Some showed a lot of promise. And then this year's going to be their possible all-pro seasons. Possibly. I'm not saying that it's going to be, but almost everybody on both my teams are very, very, very young players. I don't think I got really anyone that's over 4 years at skilled positions. I'm looking at it right now again. Yeah, I mean, I got Rachaad White in both my leagues. I believe with Baker Mayfield and his improvement last year from the previous years, and of course Rachaad kind of becoming that guy, I think they're going to use him and utilize him a lot more to get the pressure off of Baker. And then, of course, we got Bijan Robinson, who's got a quarterback now that'll keep things honest, and they're going to feed him a lot. My only worry is I hope I didn't pick McCaffrey over Robinson because of, the boards. I'm hoping that McCaffrey pulls his weight as well as Robinson, but either way, I'll win because I'll have at least Robinson in one of the leagues. So I went into this going as picking the best player I thought at the time. I didn't really have any kind of particular strategy. I didn't say, oh, well, I'm going to get a quarterback in the 4th round or I'm going to get a quarterback in the 3rd round. Really don't ever really do that. I did notice, though, a couple times where I was ready to pick somebody and the a-hole in front of me picked them. That kind of bothered me a couple times, more than usual. And what, of course, the main one, and we discussed this the last time, was Marvin Harrison Jr. The guy ahead of me in the second round picked him. I was about to pick him. So I'm hoping that's not a bad thing in the future here. But fantasy football is poker. It's skill, it's knowledge, it's getting a feel for what's going on, but it also factors in luck too. And that's what you're doing right now. You're trying to put together the right deck of cards, and you're hoping that the people around you make certain choices that help you, and that's something you can't really do anything about, other than maybe structure your lineup in a way where maybe it does make them change certain things, worry about certain things. Week one of my leagues have Kincaid, which I think is going to be a top 3 tight end this year. And a lot of, with Allen in Buffalo, at some point, they're going to have to start letting him throw more instead of run. And by having someone like Kincaid being the check down tight end, or the kind of safety blanket like most tight ends are usually to good quarterbacks, I have a feeling that you might not see Jared Allen run as much as he has in the past, so that they can preserve him. Because if they don't, you're going to start noticing in the next couple of years that he's not going to be as healthy. And there have been some things going on with him where people are expecting him more. I think they've expected him to go to the Super Bowl by now. And I think a little bit of that has to do with the fact that there is competition in the AFC, number one being Kansas City. Of course, Baltimore being strong during the regular season as well. But I think in the long run, if Buffalo's smart, if McDermott's smart, McDermott might be on the hot seat this year. If they don't go to the Super Bowl, there might be I wouldn't be surprised, and this is just my early prediction, that if Buffalo doesn't get to the Super Bowl this year, I am going to say that Ben Johnson will be the new Buffalo Bills coach next year.
Well, there you go.
And I believe that's what made him – I think that's one of the reasons why Ben Johnson turned down the Washington job, is because I think he knew that he'd have a shot at possibly going somewhere where there is a legitimate franchise quarterback, versus possibly going to a team that might have a franchise quarterback in Jaden Daniels, which I actually think might be the best quarterback of this draft class, because this draft class, I think, is going to be a disaster in terms of the quarterback.
Once again, it is Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Joe Soros here with me. It's Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching this. I truly appreciate it. Along with the Lardieri's, Chris and Dom. And Dom, before we get into any picks for entertainment purposes only, as we always do before we end the show, wanted to hear your final thoughts on anything going on in week one, as far as just overall trends that you see heading into this season in regards to fantasy football. We've got some questions coming up. I'll go ahead and hit Chris with next, but your thoughts, Dom, just some general observations before we head into week one for fantasy football owners.
Well, I'm loving the 10 o'clock games on Sunday. Excuse me. I'll tell you that. You got Texans and Colts. I really love this one because you got the duel of the sophomore quarterbacks, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and it can lead to a lot of overreaction, I think, to whether who's going to perform or who won't perform. Obviously, if Richardson's not able to compete with Stroud, then we'll obviously say the bust thing with Richardson. But if Stroud doesn't, then that could obviously stir the pot a lot more with the success that he brought last year. And also Bills Cardinals, kind of a sleeper game. I know a lot of people aren't really seeing this, but the Bills defense significantly got worse in the offseason. The Cardinals still have a really young defense as well. And so you got Kyler Murray and Josh Allen. I think it's going to be a duel. I could see this as a shootout as well. I think Marvin Harrison, as you said, Joe, Dalton Kincaid, they're going to have some big games on Sunday. And then finally, I would say the Monday night game I like a lot as well. The Jets and the 49ers. 49ers are kind of banged up if you didn't hear the news of Ricky Pearsall as well. And obviously McCaffrey, probably there's a chance he get banged up. I don't know if he's still banged up, but
so glad he's going to be okay, by the way.
Yes, glad he's going to be okay. He's only 4 weeks as well, so it's a little bit shorter of a time, so it'll be good to see him back. But a lot of people are liking the Jets. I like them because I took Garrett Wilson in a lot of drafts, but I can see this being a fun one as well.
Got a question out there for you, Chris, coming up right now from Ken Konecki. Can you give advice on my team? And I'm going to put it on the screen right now for everybody to go ahead and check out. 10-man PPR. Quarterback is Richardson. I think he might have a pretty darn good season lined up. Jonathan Taylor, so he likes his Colts. Ford at the other running back position. Then you've got Wilson and Collins as your wide receivers, 1 and 2. You've got Cooper Kupp, who I know Cool Bro will be happy about as a flex. Your number 2 flex is Smith, and then McBride as your tight end. And your bench is Keenan Allen, Wicks, Moss, and Williams. Your thoughts, my friend, on his format, and what do you think he should look at maybe making some tweaks on if they pop up on the waiver wire? Or trade, for that matter, Chris. Chris, you with me? Chris, you there? Joe, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I may have lost Chris, so if you can hear me, Joe, did you get a chance to take a look at his team? Any kind of tweaks you might make for possible trades or waiver wire additions down the road?
I would need to see how the year plays out a little bit. I don't want to make an assessment right now until I see.
But let's say you picked that team. Would you be?
I'm not expecting Richardson to have a good season, and maybe I might be wrong on that one. I don't trust him to play quarterback the way to kind of keep him off the run game, his run game. But I do know that young quarterbacks typically will rely on that, and it takes usually a year or two to acclimate in terms of defenses, and by then it doesn't matter. They'll win you fantasy football league. So let's say if Richardson is that guy, let's say his legs get you a lot of those numbers, then that ends up being a benefit there. So I would kind of keep him. Ford, I'm not feeling too comfortable with Ford at the moment. Cooper Kupp, I don't know if Cooper's hit that wall yet. Devontae Smith, I'd like to think, is a guy that might maybe take the next step. I just got to see what happens with Jalen Hurts a little bit. Keenan Allen is always injured, which is an issue. If he's not injured, he's an asset. I'd have to see how this kind of plays out before I can make a real assessment. But right now, probably most valuable player on that team, I'd say likely would be Wilson if Aaron Rodgers is healthy all year.
I think Richardson's, like you said, he could be erratic, not the greatest touchdown interception ratio, but I do believe he's going to run for quite a few touchdowns. So that could be the difference in a league. Chris, I've got you back now. I said that to you to knock it out of the park, and you froze on me there. But taking a look at the lineup right there, how competitive do you think Ken will be in this fantasy football league?
I mean, I think he will right off the top. We've got Richardson, Wilson, and Collins. You got Kupp as a third wide receiver, Keenan Allen on the bench. You are stacked at wide receiver. I do like McBride at tight end. I think he makes a jump this year. Where your issue is going to come in, I have to agree with Joe on Ford at running back. You're going to need some depth. So Ford's a good plug-in for now until Nick Chubb returns. But if I'm you, week 1, I start scouring the waiver wire, look to see who gets the carries. Even if someone really doesn't stand out or come out of left field like a Puka Nacua did, for instance, last year as a rookie, keep your eye out on some guys. Take some flyers on some running backs. I think back to 2 years ago, Dom and I snagged Kenneth Walker, and he helped us in the second half of the season, leading to a playoff run. So I think that's where you need some improvement, but I do think you have a well-rounded team at QB and wide receiver.
Dom, do you concur, or do you see some changes or tweaks that you would make?
Yeah, no, I agree. I like his team. Definitely very stacked wide receiver. He's going to get a lot of points there. And I like how he stacked Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, which can definitely help for him a lot. Just get another good running back. We always see one in the waiver wire that'll pop up. Maybe a good one could be Bucky Irving. I've heard that he could start to split carries with Rashad White in Tampa. He's a rookie running back out of Oregon, if you didn't know the name. But just guys like that, honestly, that will get some volume that you can hear about.
One more. I wanted to go ahead and I guess get Cool Bros in there. Cool Bro, please go ahead and copy and paste. Oh, there it is. Okay. He said, Joe, it's the all Rams team. So he's very reliant, Cool Bro is. And so this is your turn, Joe, to go ahead and rip on him if you want. He's very reliant on the Rams because he's got Kupp, Stafford, Puka, Turner, and Williams for his draft.
Yeah,
That's
one of
all.
the more dumb lineups you could ever create in fantasy football is a favorite team player situation.
Heart, selecting with your heart instead of your head.
I don't know if it's selecting with your heart or your head or the dumb part of your brain, but the fantasy football world does not go by your favorite teams or the people that you hope play well. It's about those who will play well. We just gave you an example of players like Richardson or guys like Heck back in the day with Tim Tebow. People won fantasy football championships because of Tim Tebow. Now, Tim Tebow couldn't throw past 10 yards, but he could run and he could score touchdowns sometimes. So you have to understand there's a difference. And there's a reason why I blocked Cool Bro from my chats. The only reason why I see his chats now is because I'm signed into Inside Sports. It's because usually idiocy tends to, cloud my thoughts, and I don't like my thoughts being clouded. And I'm not a guy that blocks people typically, but he is a child, and I'm not going to argue as a grown man with children.
He's not that much younger than Dom.
Well, Dom doesn't sound like a 15-year-old. Dom sounds like a grown man, and that matters. And when you have children who are saying things like Cooper Kupp is the best receiver of all time, I tend to start to get I don't know if the word irritated is the right word, but it becomes now a no man's land situation, and I'd rather have myself out of no man's land and let that be. That's just kind of what it is. I like severance. I'm a severance type of guy when I start to hit a wall. If I can't get through the wall, I'm gonna cut my ties and try to figure out another way. Cool Bro has done a very good job of being an ass clown. That's the best word I can use. And we try to pump it up on the show because it does give it some entertaining feels. But on a serious note, I don't know if I could really take his lineup seriously because you just can't.
You're putting all your eggs into one basket, Joe, and I think that's the problem. And Dom, I'm going to head it over to you before we get Chris and the Doghouse and the Lions before we head on out. Dom, to those people that are just like, you're going to get a lot of people over the next couple of days drafting probably for the first time, getting into it. I think the biggest mistake that you make is relying on one team for virtually your entire fantasy lineup.
Yeah, you could never do it, especially with bye weeks being such a big factor. And I feel like every player this year has a bye week in week 14 or week 12. I really kind of noticed that when drafting. But yeah, no, usually if I'm ever going to do same team, I always like to get a quarterback as number one receiver or running back, and that's all. Just kind of like stack running back and wide receiver duo. But I'm never drafting a whole team like my guy Cool Bro here is going with all his Rams players. But I guess let him have his fun, right?
Exactly. But there is the times where, Chris, you want to go ahead and put, let's say, like if you've got an oft injured quarterback that's a star, maybe his backup, you tether to each other, or a running back and his backup, or a main wide receiver and his backup. If they have an injury history, sometimes you draft that way just simply because it's as insurance, but that's just one slot. as opposed to several slots dependent solely on one team's performance.
Yeah, exactly. The old school handcuff, as it were. That's perfectly fine. I myself, when I'm going through a draft, I try not to do the quarterback receiver duo. I know once upon a time, Tom Brady and Randy Moss had a great year, and I'm sure
People
some
used to swear by it.
yeah, I mean, it does not work. I mean, anytime I've tried to do it, say I'm like desperate, there's a bye week, like you mentioned, there's injuries, and I try and do it, it never works out. Never seems to work out, at least for me. But I guess I got the fantasy football hex in that regard. But no, I wouldn't do it. If you're going to do that, then maybe go take a flyer on a daily fantasy game or something. If you think the Rams are going to light someone up on a particular week, but in leagues like we play, absolutely not. Don't do it. Dom and I are, well, long suffering, I guess, is by now Giants fans. And, a team that hasn't won a championship in 12 years makes you long suffering these days, right? But other than Malik Neighbors, I mean, there's maybe one other guy we considered in the later rounds, but if Neighbors wasn't there and I didn't get him, I wasn't going to lose sleep over it just because I don't think he's a number one receiver. I think he's a good guy to stash on the bench and hope he comes through down the stretch as a rookie. But with Daniel Jones as quarterback, I'm not going to be myopic. He's probably going to struggle here at the beginning of the year. So the players, don't do it. I think too, what makes the game fun when the Giants stink, for instance, and Dom and I have a fantasy team that's rolling along and we got a shot at the playoffs, that keeps you involved. And then too, like, one year we had Kyler Murray on our team. I couldn't normally give two craps about Kyler Murray, but he was on an entertaining offense with the Cardinals. And when there's only a couple games on in the 1 o'clock Pacific window, we're watching some Cardinals football. It's interesting. It gets you to look at some other teams and other players you might not normally.
I got you, Bronson. Wanted to go ahead. Quick comment, asking a question. Dom, I'll get you on this one. Trade Debo, Waddle, and Keon for Justin Jay and Deontay Johnson. So the trade offers are coming already. Very interesting.
Interesting one. I don't like Debo Samuel at all this year. I mean, I know Kyle Shanahan likes to get him involved, but I do like Waddle and Keon Coleman. I think Keon Coleman's poised to have a rookie breakout season with Josh Allen, having Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir as the other two guys to throw to, and Keon's a very physical receiver. He's going to get a lot of catches and I think some touchdowns as well. And then Waddle too, obviously, you always got the injury risk with Tyreek Hill and the chance that Waddle could just slide up in and be a wide receiver one there. And he's obviously going to get some targets. He may have some touchdown regression this year, but I like Waddle this year. But for Jefferson and Deontay Johnson, I think there's just too much uncertainty for those two guys. As much as I love Justin Jefferson, as much as he did get that 1,000-yard season last year with Nick Mullins for half of the year and Josh Dobbs, I mean, we really don't know what we're going to get from Sam Darnold this year. And it's just tough to predict, even though he is going in the first round. And even as great as Justin Jefferson is, I mean, you are giving up your 3 guys for 2 guys. And I usually don't like that. I like to go straight up for guys unless it's someone really good. And then Deontay Johnson just signed to the Panthers. I mean, I think Bryce Young is going to have a bounce back year, but it's Carolina and, they're still not going to be great. And he could get some volume. We saw that with Adam Thielen last year, but I just think there's too many uncertain things right now to make that trade.
Joe, would you concur or go in a different direction?
I kept thinking about, I was using the Jefferson Darnold situation as, will this be an issue? Is Jefferson great, so great that it won't matter who the quarterback is? A top-notch quarterback can still give him better numbers, of course, but will his numbers still be good with a subpar quarterback? You looked at guys like, let's say DeAndre Hopkins, right? For years, he didn't really have a top-notch quarterback, and he was a great receiver. You had Andre Johnson and back with the Texans, he was having great seasons. It's possible that those guys can still have very good seasons, but a little bit of me also says, I don't know. And usually I try to be a gut player in this game as much as I can, because usually if you go with your first gut, it's usually the correct one versus second guessing. And when you second guess and you're wrong, you feel like crap. Neighbors was one for sure, because I kept thinking, Daniel Jones, really? Neighbors, rookie receiver. I don't know. Is that going to be another situation, kind of like Pickens in Pittsburgh, where he just wasn't getting the ball, and he was. And the thing with Pickens in Pittsburgh is he doesn't have to be open to get the ball. It's just getting him the ball. He's one of those kind of guys. But go with your gut at that point and be cautious in terms of who you can trust being a guy who can get separation and has an elite quarterback or a very good quarterback is the best way to go, is the easiest way I can explain it. So you look at someone like, I don't know, let's say, and I say good, like Kirk Cousins goes into that category as much as that makes me want to gag. But for some weird reason, that guy just gets you 300 yards and 3 touchdowns regularly. I know it's usually the last 4 minutes of a game when they're getting blown out. But like I said before, this is fantasy football. We don't care about the wins and losses in this game. This is about numbers. So looking at, let's say, someone like Drake London, now he has a quarterback that can actually go vertical. Is he going to be able to kind of have a breakout season? I did draft him thinking that I think that there might be something there. Tank Dell, he was phenomenal last year. And if he is healthy this year and can continue, you have a guy that can probably get 7 to 8 catches a game as long as he's healthy. And that's kind of how I look at that, honestly. That the receiver thing is separation and receptions. Can they do that? Can they get 6 to 7, let's say, a game with at least 60, 70 yards and maybe a touchdown? If you can produce that on the average per game, then you're getting good play from your receivers. And that could be from a okay quarterback to a great quarterback. And that's just kind of the game you play.
Once again, it is Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Joe Soro is here from Simblades, simblades.com.
I do want to say this.
Okay.
I have a weird feeling, I might be wrong,
Okay.
that running backs are going to be important this year.
Okay.
I don't know why. I just feel like the running
Because
back.
it's so wide receiver heavy and late.
I feel like if you can get 2 running backs that play the entire year, which is asking a lot,
mm-hmm.
you are going to likely be in the end in your league.
Oh, there you go.
And that's what I try to really, really focus on in this draft. Is I wanted guys that were either going to play the full 17 and be the primary, or guys that tend to get the ball at the goal line. And one of my leagues, I have McCaffrey and I have White out of from the Bucks, and I even had James Conner. I didn't think James Conner was going to play as well as he did last year, and I'm hoping he can continue what he did last year this year.
Well, before we head on out, guys, it's week 1 in the NFL, so we're going to look at some of the matchups provided by the league. But it's that time, Chris, the time that you head out onto the lawn. It's still 100 degrees outside here in Vegas, and Southern California is still probably burning up as well. So you head on out, basically in a tank top and shorts, gotten the grill going, gotten everything going, got those hot dogs roasting. But you look over and the dog's kind of depressed because you haven't been paying attention all summer to it. So now it's time to go over and head on over to the woof woof woof. What you got planned this time out for week 1 in the doghouse?
The dog's going to be let back inside in the cool air conditioning, lay on that nice tile, unlike my neighbor's dog that's barking as we do this show, but I digress. So great to be back for another year of these picks. Last year was an up and down year. Let's even get off to a better start. Looking through the lines, some weeks I struggle. Some weeks there are multiple games. Looking at that Rams-Lions line, I'm thinking back to the best game of the wild card round last year when the Rams could have easily won that game. They ended up covering. They're getting 3.5. That's an intriguing game. Think about that one. But the one that stuck out to me is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Everyone's down on them. They definitely underachieved last year. Trevor Lawrence gets a huge contract. People scratch their head. A lot of non-believers still around the Jacksonville Jaguars and Doug Peterson, but they're going into Miami. They're getting 3.5 points. Gerald, you know I love that hook. I just think the Jaguars are due to bounce back. Could they be a playoff team? Perhaps, but I don't think they're as bad as they were last year. I think Lawrence, even though he made that money, still has a lot to prove. And I don't think they'll be bothered by that sweltering southern Florida heat down in Miami at Hard Rock Stadium. Not only do I think they could go in there and cover and keep it close, but I wouldn't be surprised if they outright win. So Jaguars is the first doghouse pick of the 2024 season for yours truly.
Mine is kind of simpler, Chris, that I have on the road the Dallas Cowboys heading into Cleveland. Yeah, I know that they've got possible issues with the running backs, but Dak Prescott, I think, is primed for another great season. He's got a lot of targets, CeeDee Lamb, et cetera, et cetera. I think that them being a 2.5-point underdogs is pretty darn close. I think it's a toss-up between them and Cleveland. I know Cleveland's pretty good, but heading into the dog pound, rhymes with the doghouse, I'm going to go ahead and take Dallas as my underdog pick this time out. But Joe, before I get it over to Dom, for entertainment purposes only, I know you have been asked for your football sage knowledge because our viewers on the Lakers Fast Break from Australia, Mark Xbox, one of our great members and part of our membership program, has asked you for your sage advice for some picks that he wants to go ahead and possibly do some betting on for entertainment purposes only. That's up to him. And that's up to you out there if you decide to. Don't blame us if it doesn't go your way. But your thoughts, my friend, on week one, on maybe some picks for Mark and everyone out there as well.
Oh, you want picks for each game?
No, just a couple that's going for him. Just he wants just some advice. He didn't say for the entire list of games for week one. It's just a couple that stand out for you.
Well, I feel very comfortable that the Bengals are going to kill the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say
beyond the cover, about what is it, 8.5?
I believe so. Yes, yeah. I believe so. I believe that's probably the one that I feel very comfortable that they will cover and win at least by 10. The other one, I'd say the surefire one would be Seahawks versus the Broncos.
Okay.
Because I think the Broncos are going to be in a world of hurt with Bo Nix.
Yep, a rookie quarterback heading into the 10th man area. Yeah, kind of tough.
I hate to say this, and it's just not. It's not going to work. Bo Nix is not going to work out, and I think these teams stretched way too much for these quarterbacks. I think it was a major mistake, and believe me, I watched Kenny Pickett the last couple of years, and we realized how bad it is when you stretch for a quarterback. Quarterbacks, they go one of two ways. Either they're the top picks, typically. Top picks can vary depending on need. I do know that. 2004 season, the year that Eli came out, Phillip Rivers and Big Ben, the fact that Big Ben dropped to 11 had a lot more to do with the fact that, well, it's two reasons. One, it was because he played at Miami of Ohio. They didn't know if he would translate that to the NFL as much. And then most of the teams that were picking between, 4 and 10, either were stupid franchises like the Cleveland Browns, or just teams that didn't think they needed a quarterback. And things have changed since then, obviously. And in this draft, it's been the opposite. You had way too many quarterbacks available. And really, probably only 2 quarterbacks should have gone in the top 5 in my book. Everyone else should have either gone late in the first, or most should have actually went the second and third. But teams are desperate, and they're hoping they can strike gold. But I think that's a dumb way to approach it, because the NFL is becoming harder and harder to play, even at quarterback, even with all the concessions at quarterback, because of the pressure. And by taking a chance when you can get a bona fide player that could probably help you in the long run in other positions, again, you get stuck in that. And Caleb Williams is not one of the guys that I think is going to be on top when it's all said and done. I think Caleb Williams physically has every bit of an elite quarterback's arm, legs, all that. But I think his brain might not take him where he thinks he can go.
Dom, I leave the last bit of comments for you, my friend. So before we hand it out, is there entertainment purposes only? Because I make sure that I'm not guiding you towards any type of gambling issues going forward. And because I know that Chris and your mom would probably give me that. But Dom, any advice for anything you're leaning on as far as week one, as far as teams are concerned?
Oh, week one. Well, I said earlier I thought the Bills Cardinals is going to be a shootout, and you could take advantage of that even more. The Cardinals are 6-point dogs against the Bills. That game can go many different ways. I think it's going to be a fun one, though, as I said earlier. And then I would say, it's tough. There's a lot of great games here, but I'm going to go to the hometown G-Men in New Jersey. I mean, it is basically a pick 'em against the Vikings, but I mean, we all know how injured the Vikings are, and I'm not going to be too biased here, but I don't think Sam Darnold's going to have a lot of fun with Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Dexter Lawrence chasing him all day. So I could see the Giants getting a week one win. I mean, it's being very optimistic because we don't know what we're going to get out of Daniel Jones, but just keep that in mind.
Fair enough indeed. Great having you guys on. Don't forget, Chris and Dom Lardieri, they're the guys behind Domination Sports Nation, wherever you get your podcasts. Then, of course, Joe Soro. Not only is he Ox1947 at LakersBall.com, but also the mastermind behind Simblades with a Y.com as well. So, guys, great to have you here. I know Dom had to chat, but any last thoughts, Chris or Joe, before we head on out? No, not really. Week one's here. Yay.
Well, week one usually is riddled with, unfortunately, riddled with penalties because the refs like to get their early start in calling every kind of penalty known to man to get things leveled off for the year, and then they don't call any holding penalties in the Super Bowl. So that's usually their MO, which goes to show you, the reason why I try to stay away from the gambling side of things is because that perpetuates all that stuff as well. So there's a principle there.
Well, it's just for.
Oh, I'm not downgrading anybody who gambles, but in my view, the gambling has influenced.
Oh, it has.
More so than before. There was more direct influence back in the day when guys weren't making as much money. You had guys maybe doing some things, refs, but now it's in your face. Now it's, we need more scoring and we need more of this, we need more of that. This is what's going to help fantasy football, is what's going to help gambling and all that. And yeah, I just think the kickoff thing is going to be hilarious to watch during the regular season. I want to see what illegal procedure looks like on a kickoff. I already saw it in the preseason and almost died laughing watching it. I mean, seriously, this turn. Look, I don't like to be dramatic, but are we not? Why don't they just turn this into flag football and just call it a day? Are people are probably going to still watch? I won't, but seriously, I mean, we're at this point, and I'm wondering when it will be official. At least arena football. They can make it an arena football league, and then because of it's arena football, there's not going to be any defense. Don't really need a running back, and then you can add more seats to the stadium so the pig owners can make more money. That's my last line for the night for football.
Chris, any last tidbits before we head on out? Chris, you there? I think he is also. Chris, you there? Chris is actually still. I think he's already left for the evening. But again, please go ahead and follow him and Dominic Lardieri wherever you get your podcasts on the Domination Sports Nation. Joe Soro, again, he's with me several times a week at Lakers Fast Break. Truly appreciate you joining us there. Please like and subscribe wherever you're watching this on Lakers Corner, Clutch Talk, also as well, of course, the Pop Culture Cosmos and the Lakers Fast Break. It is Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week after week one, hoping your fantasy team does well this season. And if you need any questions to ask us, you can always ask us in the comments below or ISFF right there for you in isfantasyfootball@yahoo.com. Oh, there he is. Chris, any last thoughts before we head on out, my friend?
Yeah, sorry about that, Gerald. I don't know, just twice the audio's gone out on me, and I've just been sitting here plugged in. Apologize for that.
No,
So yeah, I'm glad football's back. I think from a fantasy perspective, this is the week you keep your eyes and ears open and observe what's going on. I mentioned Puka Nakua earlier. You know, there are going to be guys who have a huge week one or really maybe stand out or come out of nowhere. Don't just listen to the talking heads or the experts online or whatever podcast that is in ours that you listen to. Someone's got a game or they're getting targets or they're getting worked into the offense and it wasn't expected. You got to take a flyer on them on week one if you believe in them. And don't do it just based solely off of stats. You know, watch the games, watch the highlights, see what really went on. If a guy got a bunch of targets because a starting receiver got hurt or he was being locked down by the other team's best corner, take that into account. But this is one of the few weeks where you can get value on the waiver wire and sneak in a sleeper that could end up. I mean, Dom and I had Puka playing every week of the season at one point. So there's going to be someone like that out there. I don't know who he will be, but I will say to Joe's point, running back is going to be important this year. We have Gibbs and Walker in one league thinking that those two guys, if they stay healthy, should be their number one backs in their respective teams. There could be someone who has a good week and maybe won't be starting right away, but come week 8, week 9, and down the stretch of the season, he will turn into a starter like Walker did a few years ago. Snag him, stash him on your bench. That's what it's for. If you play in a league like ours with an IR spot, that's even better because you could park a legitimately injured player and get a roster spot for one of your sleepers on the bench.
there you go. So if you have any questions for us, again, isfantasyfootball@yahoo.com. Well, again, you can put it in the comments below, but thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. The questions out there, and of course, Joe Soro and Chris and Dom Lardieri also as well for joining us. We'll be back next week after week 1 in the NFL. Hoping you have a great fantasy football weekend from all of us right here at Inside Sports Fantasy Football.